Hey folks, this is Brian. I was in the midst of uploading videos for the game we played last night, Session 66, and I realized that Session 65 was never uploaded or recorded. Oh man, oh what a mess. But so, Session 65. We're back in the summer. I'm gonna try and coordinate so these actually post first. Okay, so there was no contact with the wizard that was working with the fist from the Mages Guild wizard. And does the guild desire to hire a company to go and investigate? Well, yes. Do you know anyone? Why, I know just the right group. Krim, do you want to come along? Of course. It's my necklace. Okay, so Krim heads back to the temple. Wes takes the coach to the villa. Wes updates everyone on the events of that night. So we're starting to ask ourselves questions like, why did the goat man have the key? The key being the leaf key. Runt retrieves his dagger from the church because it was being repaired. The church was supporting the repair. He mentions his spear. It was a long time ago, guys, so I'm sorry I don't remember a whole lot of this specifically. Krim is not able actually to come along because she has other duties, but she does relinquish the leaf key to Wes. At this point, Runt recommends that we hire the dwarf to build a forge at the villa and have him work for or with us, right? and So there's a bunch of discussion. I don't know if all that's caught in the live play, but I do have a live play for this one. About, okay, how much does a dwarven smith cost, right? How much does it cost to make a forge? So while this discussion and stuff was going on, everybody's talking about fourth, I went and pulled out my old Advanced Dungeons and Dragons DM's guide and pulled out that the occupation or profession of an armorer costs 100 gold pieces, right? Because these are monthly costs in gold pieces. Um, but that cost does not include remuneration or special fees. Usually a 10% additional cost for items to be handled or made by these hirelings. I'm not sure. I'm just following some of this stuff right. Oh, so if something costs, for example, they say a soup plate mail costs 400 gold pieces, 10% of that, the 40 gold pieces, is added to the cost to maintain the blacksmith, something like that. And it talks about an armor. You need an armor for every 40 soldiers and all this kind of stuff. And there's a proration number of here based upon percentages of people. Okay, and it says a workroom and a forge cost between 310 and 400 gold pieces. It would be nice if they actually put some dice numbers in there to let us know what it is they actually mean by that. How do you get 31 to 40? It's a difference of 9 points. Is that 2d6? No. Yeah, I'd have to figure that out. But essentially, you're talking about 3 to 4 times the monthly cost is how much it costs for a workroom and forge. So we figured out how much a smith in Runequest costs, then multiply by 3.1 to 4, and that's how much it would cost for us to build our workroom and forge. And I said all this to the GM. I thought it was interesting. It also mentions that dwarven armors cost, oh, they are twice as efficient, which means I guess they go twice as fast, but they cost 3 times as much. We also figure out amongst ourselves that traveling rations cost 1 silver per person per day. Okay, it's starting to turn fall. Uh, we're heading up north, so we find a deer that was snagged by a serpent in the river northeast of the road from Kars, along the path to the mines. Um, at the battle site where we had our first base camp, Wes and Runt discovered the remains of orcs. There's a fight here. There are arrows from Kars um, in some of the orc bodies. They're outside of the main battle area. So it looks like the Iron Fist got attacked by orcs here, and they beat him. There are no graves, recent graves here, right? But we figured that if the Iron Fist had any losses, they would take those bodies with them. And then we head up to the buried farmhouse to rest for the night. Okay, next morning we head to the gate, to the caves. We notice there are some poles in the ground across the entryway to the Vale. Initially, we see just 5, but as we get closer, we can see that there's a whole line of them the uh, across the entrance to the valley. There's 15 total. We investigate them. These are all Iron Fist bodies, and they've all been tortured. There's no sign of anybody's being dragged to or from this location. So we move up to our old campsite outside of J and K. Um, and there is in fact a campsite there, and it's been destroyed. So it looks like the IF went ahead and camped here as well. We're looking for tracks, see if they go to any of the specific cave entrances, and sure enough, they go to the two, J and K, the two that we went to all the time. We head up to entrance K, and there's some weak old blood here. It is human, but there are no bodies. We travel to the old temple inside the cavern, to the altar. No encounters. The altar looks untouched. Raymond, shifts it aside, and we climb down. There's that little 10 foot 10 room at the bottom of the ladder, and there's a small hallway that opens, goes out and enters into another 10 foot by 10 foot room with another altar. And this altar looks like what we saw in Hama. It's got um, the vine motif all around it coming up. Some of the stems have leaves on them, some do not. There are no decorations on the walls, though, to suggest any kind of association. The shrine itself is small, 4 by 3 rectangular. Uh, there are over a dozen of the leafless stems sticking up. So West starts alternating right and left, testing the leaves on the open stems, testing the leaf key on the open stems. Nothing seems to happen. West then puts a magic point into the leaf, which it takes, and try again. Nothing. So West gives Raymond the leaf, and Raymond asks, "Hey, does it have a magic point in it?" Which it does. So West ends up taking it back. No, it doesn't. West takes it back, puts a magic point into it, and then which it does take, and he lets everyone know that there's magic points in it. He hands it back to Raymond, or a magic point in it. Raymond then touches the healing staff to the altar. He's trying to make some kind of connection. He gets no feelings. West tries searching the walls for coverings, um, like there's like whitewash or some kind of residue here. So there had been painting of some sort on the walls, but it's been reduced due to age to nothing. Raymond tries casting Bless and puts it into the leaf, and he does various checking as well. Nothing. So we try again from the back side of the altar, another magic point. And this time, as he's doing his attempts, one of the stems actually reaches up to the leaf. And then the altar turns into a gate. No one on that side can see the gate. They just see the altar in West. So West, hey, come back over this side. So everybody comes back down West, and they can see the gate now. So they start going through. Raymond goes first. Um, West is holding the leaf on the stem. That seems to be keeping it open. There seems to be some kind of smoky hallway beyond the gate. Raymond goes through. His shield's on his back. He's got healing staff in his left hand, and his sword is out. Then Runt goes through. Then Hjalmar, and finally West steps through, taking the leaf with him. On the other side, Raymond steps forward, and the walls feel solid but insubstantial. Runt has light, but is illuminating just poorly. But once West comes through, the smokiness disperses, and we are in a room, just like the one we left. 10 foot, 10 foot, small altar, 4 by 3, hallway heading off. But this one does have murals still painted on the walls with bits and pieces. It looks like a forest scene. We go to the other room, go up the ladder. Um, Raymond tries to move it, finds the latch to move the slab, with the altar on top, kind of thing, and he's then able to open it. The room above is complete ruins. It's completely dark. The altar will not move all the way due to rubble in the room. The ceiling has collapsed in places. There are roots and earth coming through. Um, it's only 20 by 30, but we know the original room that we were in was 20 by like 50 or something, right? One end has been completely collapsed. Okay, so we go back down. We go to the altar. Wes attempts to do the reversed, but a different stem pulls at the leaf. He connects them, and gate opens. We go through another similar chamber. These walls are more intact. There are murals. They're less foresty and more river delta marsh-ish. It is much preserved than the other location. In fact, it's about 89% intact. Same setup: room, hallway, room, ladder, altar. When Remy gets to the top, though, he attempts to listen and he hears bird calls. He opens the latch. Some water pours through um, and comes in as the altar slides over. There's a mucky smell in the air. It's daytime. Raymond looks out. It's 20 by something ruins. The upper roof is completely collapsed. There's just walls coming up. He climbs out, and we're in standing water here, which is why water came in. The walls are all overgrown with vines and creepers and mold. There are trees outside. They're towering up over the ruins that we're in. Trees have moss covering them. It's very swamp-like here. Raymond asks if anyone knows of swamps other than the one near Hamlet. Wes knows there is one south of Zig. Uh, Run, listen to bird calls and look at the plant types. Things. Yeah, this is a swamp of some sort. And the walls have been exposed to the elements for a long time. So we scrambled up one of the collapsed areas, and we see a vast ruin, probably a city of some sort, encompassed by a vast marsh, a marsh everywhere we see. Off to one direction is mountaintops. To the right are more peaks. Behind us and out to the left are just treetops. Nearby, we see some stone relief and broken statuary, so we go to investigate. And the statues are all lizard men. And the statues are of lizard men. They're wearing clothes. Some have satchels and staves and robes and such. And after a history check, we remember that there was, in fact, an alliance prior to the Lords of Bloodstone of various races, which included the lizardmen, and that they all rose up against Forg's rule. However, after the defeat of Forg, there was a period of peace and prosperity. However, but after the defeat of Forg, there was, in fact, a period of peace and prosperity. But then the wars of race against race began again. The swamp that's between Zig and Telgar is the land of lizard men. The lizard men are no longer scarred like this statue we saw. They do conduct piracy and slaving along the various trade routes between Zig and Telgar. So we go looking around, and there's this plaza, more statuary, that's surrounded by buildings. So we go and investigate the buildings. We're thinking the one in the center should be the most important one, and it's opposite of where we are, and it's got a main thoroughfare on this plaza. Raymond notices some movement in the building up ahead of us. And if we are correct in our assumption this is the swamp between Zig and Telgar, as we face the building that we're looking at, we are in fact facing east. So Zig would be to the north, to the west is the ocean. And we hear roaring in the distance to the west, and the cries of a dinosaur dying at the hands of another one, and the sounds of consumption beginning. So we go and we check out this building. There's two figures of lizardmen and an elf. The elf figure has been defaced. In places, this building is a couple of stories, but again, it's ruins. Wes recommends trying to go down to see if we can find anything. So we begin our search. We do find stairs going down, a couple steps, and then it's water. Using his rapier, deep, it goes down. But while we're there, we do find some books. I don't know if it was a bookshelf or not. And so we go through a series of attempts to scoop, carefully maintain the book, put it in something we can wrap tight, place it in somebody's backpack between something hard and something hard. We ruin a couple of books, but we do get one finally packed away. Back in the plaza, there are three different kinds of lizard men in the statuary. One is armored and has weapons. He's big, stronger. His face is croctillian. One looks like a crafter. He's got like tools on his belt. Um, and then there's one with the books and the robes, the scholar-looking guy, who looks like a slee stack. If any of you guys remember Land of the Lost back when at least I was a kid. And the crafter is kind of in between this crocodilian and the slee stack kind of looking thing. So it has a snout, but not nearly as long because the slee stacks didn't have much of a snout at all. Excuse me. So while this is going on, Runt spies a lizard spying on us. So he does his quick dagger thing, hits it in the head. And the head that he saw was something between the warrior and the crafter heads, but it was far more croctillian looking. Um, but after that, we decided we need to go. So we get back to the altar and we attempt a reverse connection, but that didn't work. So we go back to the rear to connect, to go back. And that worked. We ended up back in the middle area where the forest motif. We reconnect from that altar to our gate, and so we come out in the altar room. We search through the rest of the K caverns for any evidence of activity. Nothing. We go to the J cavern. No evidence of anything. It's getting towards evening, so we plan to camp out underneath the altar where we know it's safe because we can shut it down on it. Okay, the next day we discuss searching for evidence of the mage. And while we're talking about this, Wes notices that over by the owlbear cave are some bodies. So we go and investigate. Sure enough, it's the dead mage and two others. They had obviously been killed by the owlbear. One of them had been partially eaten. So we take some evidence of the mage. We bury the three bodies back at where our camp is. It looks like that they had been killed before the Iron Fist guys on the poles. In other words, the decomposition is further along on these bodies than it is the guys on the poles. Runs counting bodies, says, "Hey, there should be two more. Wonder where they are or where they went." So we head back to Kars. We report to the Guild of Mages about the gates, what we experienced. Show Thurman the book. He says the guild will take care of it and see what can be done. Some more discussion on gate use. This use was an extensive underground network used to fight against Forg. Various temples were used to hide them. And there are some gates that are not within temples at all. And that the gates are much older than the temples. The shrines and temples were built up around the gates. Many of them have been destroyed. And we're thinking those associated stems, would therefore not work. They make use of a system that is between all of the gates. They're all connected. And Forg was able to infiltrate and set demons, which we found out about, in order to intercept travelers to try to stop them. There are two modes of operation. One is to use an inner passageway, and the other is to use the various exits. So there's like a middle ground where you can just go through whatever this place is. We ask, why is there a connection between two portals and why some don't? Because sometimes they're connected and sometimes they just go one way or something, I guess. No one is aware of any map of where the stems go. The gates just not that well known. Obviously, have some kind of mechanism to choose the destination. So you must either have some knowledge of where you want to go, or it's just random luck. So we think that's what kind of happened. On the way back, it was knowledge. On the way out, it was random luck. Okay, so we head over to the Loranthian Temple. Runt sees a dwarf coming out of the Golden Light, so we go to speak with him. He seems wary of us, but nods as we approach. Raymond inquires about a letter that we sent to him. When can we meet next? And he says, when do you have time for beer? I say, the Golden Lion tonight. He says, done. Runt, however, has issues with the dwarf. Personality conflicts. But we go on back to the temple, the Loranthian Temple. We share our experiences with using the key, to include Raymond's attempt. None of us can charge the key here. We try charging the key here, so it looks like we got within a certain radius of the gate to actually charge the key to use it. There were burn signs in the valley on the ground, and some of the bodies were charred. So definitely the keep was involved because they've got that fire drake. But that all seemed to have happened after the wizard was killed. Now, how would anybody know the owlbear was there? Did they know from our reports, maybe? We don't know. Anyway, we have dinner with a dwarf. Wes covers the tab because he has money now. It seems that the dwarf is fitting well in Kars. He huffs, talks about bent anvils and poor tools. And Raimi says, "How would you like to fix that? Our villa could use a craftsman such as you. How would you like to build your own workshop?" He says, 200 silver a year, plus expenses. And he'll be making tools as close to dwarven as possible with these human materials. We ask how long it will take for him to create a list of his needed materials. He says, "I can create what I need with the right materials. I'll need access to the mine up north. I want to extract the ore myself to make sure it's of proper quality." Talking and eating continues. The dwarf orders the most expensive food and drink and does not seem to stop. He did go to the better smiths in town. He did get a deal from one of them for 160 silver a month, but he wants proper lodging on top of monthly pay. He's willing to work for the villa, but anything else he does is his. And if there's any specific requirements outside the villa, that's an extra requirement. And so that's kind of the deal that we ended with on this session. Whew. 21 minutes. Happy gaming, guys. Session 66 is right behind this one.